All right. Good morning, Internet. Welcome to another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. Um, Certainly interesting times, not unique for all of us to be broadcasting from home, and obviously this is going on with all the major news outlets and so on and so forth. So hopefully you guys are able to catch our episode live, and if not, we certainly get a lot of syndication viewership. But here we are with another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. As always, I'm Adam Smith with Just the Tips Coaching, and as is our marketing director and one of our coaches, Jenn Weybauer. Good morning, Jenn.
Good morning.
And we've got a repeat guest for you guys today. And obviously, as our show develops and evolves, and as the world develops and evolves, we do ask some of our previous guests who have been entertaining, to say the least, to make repeat appearances on our show. And again, with us today is Glenn Groves with GTG Financial in California. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, no, we're happy to have you again. Glenn, obviously we had a little bit of pre-broadcast conversation about where we thought the conversation might take us today, what people watching might be curious about today, those kinds of things. I'm certainly, and Ashley's watching. Good morning, Ashley. Lindsay, good morning, Lindsay. Mark, hi, Mark.
The team's here.
Yeah, surprised that our tribe, our club is watching us live. And obviously, we're living in very strange times. Not so strange that salespeople, the Just the Tips audience, real estate agents, mortgage originators aren't able to cope. We're obviously all used to some of the economic issues that arise. People in mortgages, people in real estate. In essence, we, wake up every day unemployed. And that's an old Paul Harvey saying, that the real estate agent wakes up every day unemployed. And obviously, a lot of us are really good with technology, our computers, our smartphones, the ability to work from home, those kinds of things. And that even translates to lead gen, which is typically the general topic surrounding these Just the Tips, How I Met Your Mortgage podcasts every week. But Glenn, let's just start by getting your take on what kind of impact you're having. Now, again, for those of you watching, Glenn's in California. California was really the first state to be on a shelter-at-home order or shelter-in-place order. So Glenn was forced into making those kinds of changes, or everybody in California was, from a pretty early standpoint in those kinds of activities going on in the United States. But Glenn, tell us what's different today for you, your team, just from a basic operation standpoint than what you saw, what you were dealing with a month ago.
Sure. Well, first off, you can tell I'm in an unfinished home office here. So that's always the timing couldn't have been better, right? We're almost done with this, but so that's going on. But, a lot of our originators are already mobile or already remote, if you will. So that hasn't really changed at all. I think the biggest dynamic has been not being able to be obviously face-to-face with the operations staff every morning, see how things are going, checking on pipeline status, et cetera. But because everybody's got laptops, we all have integrated cameras going on here, it just has been Zoom calls just like we're on right now. You and I together were on a Zoom call on Friday with, I think it got up to about 15 of our colleagues on there, and without a hitch, really. So the technology is there. I think it's a mindset game at this point where people just need to realize that, hey, just because you're at home doesn't mean, you work half as much. It's the same amount of work. It's just a different location.
Okay. And what do you think that lends to a psychological impact? Are you as productive in your unfinished shed as you are in the office?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Just as I mentioned, hey, we have the technology, it is like, hey, I do have 3 monitors at work. So switching to just a laptop doesn't hurt, but also having the kids, my wife, the dog around, stuff like that, just the natural distractions of being at home it is, I don't want to say more mentally taxing, but you do have to focus more on the task at hand, right? Because it's not your normal routine. We're totally out of routine now with what's going on. So I'm sure like a lot of people that are now working from home, that constant, having snacks in front of you too, that doesn't help at all. The quarantine snacks, right?
They are, yes.
So I'm sure we're all going to come
calories
out and be
for
like,
sure.
Yeah, we're all going to be like, okay, we all need to really start working out now.
Yeah, true story. I have struggled really hard to make sure I'm still getting my fat butt on the treadmill every morning. Glenn, I love your shirt. That is fantastic. I think that's the first time I noticed that. For those of you watching, that's the mortgage company that I own. Glenn's wearing one of our t-shirts. So thank you for the nod. What about you, Jen? I know probably a lot of the answers to this since we work so closely together. But what kind of an impact would the ability to not go into the office again have on you? Now, you carry a laptop back and forth all the time that you probably do the majority of your work on anyway.
Right.
But unlike Glenn and myself, you live alone. So there is no additional human interaction outside of a virtual arena. What kind of an impact do you think it's having or will have on you?
Honestly, that's my biggest concern, is just being home alone. I mean, I have 2 cats and 2 dogs that are very happy to have me at home, but the lack of human interaction does freak me out a little bit. But we are lucky to have things like Zoom, and the girls, we all have a group chat in the office that's going nonstop. Luckily, from a day-to-day operations side, I can do 99% of my job from home. The only thing is our high production video that we record in the studio. That's really the only effect it has on what I can do. And luckily I have a work from home background, so I am just as productive at home, but I don't have kids running around, a spouse running around, so I can, throw some loud music on and get my work done day to day.
Okay. So from a logistics standpoint, for probably most of us, obviously myself and Glenn included, we've got to remain diligent, motivated, focused, scheduled, doing the kinds of things that we need to be doing, even though we're not getting up, jumping in the car, and going to the office to get them done. For those of you that have seen our classes or have a copy of my book, whatever, happiness is a well-oiled calendar. Keep those things up to date. Literally getting on the treadmill is on my calendar. Every morning it rings, and if it's on my calendar, it'll get done. But obviously the psychological toll, the interruptions, again, kids and dogs and so on and so forth, is going to make an impact as well. So Glenn, if we shift gears into like a typical lead gen perspective, and obviously we talked a lot about that the last time you were on the show, what changes for you, for your team, certainly for the other loan originators in a virtual environment? What kind of lead gen activities are going to change, or going to improve, or going to suffer, if any?
I don't know if it's going to change all that much, because the heavy lead gen was already, well, obviously what's taken out is the face-to-face meetings, right? Your coffee meetings, things like that. But as far as, this has actually given me a little bit more fuel for doing lead gen via email and text message, because there's just been so much breaking news, so many updates. Not that we're sending something every single day, but on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, it has been, yes, by the way, rates are at all-time lows. Then yes, by the way, rates have spiked. Just
today again, we're at all-time lows, right? Yeah, The mortgage-backed securities market's been weird.
Yeah, everybody in the loop and trying to stay ahead of it, because we know that whether it was, hey, stock market's had its worst day since 1987, or Fed's cut rate to 0%, that's going to just be an avalanche of different types of communication, and just getting accurate stuff out there. We don't have to be, as articulate and in-depth as Barry Habib, right? But we at least just need to break it down into layman's terms of, hey, by the way, 0% interest rate does not mean mortgage rates are at zero. Yet you still get the stuff and you're like, okay, let me go through it. You just kind of get in that repetitive motion of the spiel that you're gonna give, right? But as far as other lead gen stuff, I mean, I have to be honest. Right now, I think a lot of people are just sitting on the sidelines. This is scary. What's going on? We don't know the result of it. We don't know when it's going to be over. So I'm focusing on who I have now, and anybody new, it's just kind of with kid gloves, right? Because you don't know if something's going to happen in the news tomorrow, and they're gonna be like, we're out. It's like, okay, that's perfectly fine. But I'm still using my scheduling app to set phone appointments with people. I mean, I've been on my phone more than you'd be proud of me, because I've been on my phone more often than I haven't now, being at home. But yeah, not a whole lot has changed in the lead gen, except for those face-to-face meetings,
So let me ask you something, because you and Ashley, and for those of you watching, Ashley Miller, who works for Glenn's operation, holds a very similar role to what Jenn does for our mortgage company when it comes to social media and marketing and those kinds of things. And GTG is phenomenal when it comes to social media stuff. LinkedIn, Insta, Facebook, well, certainly Twitter. I mean, all across the board. I see your stuff, and I know it's Ashley doing a lot of that legwork. And I'm certainly still heavily participating in social media, whether it's as a consumer, as a business owner, as a mortgage originator, as a sales coach, whatever the case may be. And obviously, in the social media world right now, we're getting inundated, flooded with things that are related to Corona, to COVID, to the economic markets, so on and so forth. Is it so much of a distraction for the consumer in their social media viewership activity that it's actually impacting what kind of activity, what kind of results, what kind of traction you guys are getting out of your social media activity? Have you seen a drop off over the last few weeks because obviously, people aren't really on social media in their normal manner in the last couple of weeks? It's a very different environment. Do you think that kind of activity is impacting the social media work that GTG has always done? Have you made adjustments to it? And should people in our audience make adjustments to it?
It's a great question. Obviously, we've seen a little slowdown from the organic type stuff from the lead pool, if you will. But we haven't really seen, and I personally haven't seen a slowdown from existing clients or people we had relationships with before, right? They're almost, whether it's within a private group where we're kind of giving advice or something like that, or people just reaching out saying, hey, I saw your post on this. It's people know that there's a lot of BS on social media, right? And as much as Facebook wants to do it and Instagram wants to try and clean stuff up, I mean, they're going to turn to who has proven themselves in the past of giving accurate information or just trustworthy advice, right? So that being said, I mean, we're still getting, I would say we're getting a little pickup in traffic because everybody's on their phones right now. Everybody's in front of every news outlet they can get in front of. Plus, again, that goes back to the whole, you being at home, you're like, oh crap, I'm distracted, on Facebook or something when I shouldn't be, is I'm seeing great traction from it of people reaching out saying, hey, I saw your post on 0% interest rates. Well, that's because I also sent you an email and a text message. So thank you for seeing that at least, But no, no serious drop off from social media aspect.
Okay. And what do you think you or I or Jenn or Ashley or anybody that's in real estate, mortgages, car sales, financial planning, all of these big direct-to-consumer environments that are going to be impacted over the long term, what kind of things do you think we should be doing in our social media activity to ensure that that traction stays up?
I would just go back to the easy to understand, accurate information. No, don't speculate, unless it's something that's in your wheelhouse, right? Like we had talked about before, it's like, how long do we think this is going to last? You know, that's more of, it's an educated guess at that point. But speculating of, hey, did you hear that they're going to shut down all the borders and it's going to be martial law or something like that? That's probably not the best rhetoric you want to be throwing out there, right? On social media right now, you're just going to hit a bee's hive with a baseball bat there. So, no, just easy to understand, accurate information. Same as what you should have been doing before, but hey, now may be the time to practice your craft even more so that you're going to have more eyeballs.
Your mom comments that she would not want to be a financial advisor right now. Talk about having to talk people off a cliff. Yeah, Elise, I would say that that's accurate, although the right financial...
Bye.
Yeah, right financial planner...
What am I doing?
Is doing good work. I had one call me a couple of weeks ago. I've got two that I use fairly heavily, and they both made me a ton of money last year. And one of them called me weeks ago and says, hey, I'm going to make some changes, shift some things around. I said, great, do whatever you need to do, whatever you feel is right. With the amount of money he makes me, who am I to criticize what he's doing?
Right.
And I wasn't even going to open the app or one of my statements and even look at it. And actually, the losses have been negligible. So if it's a financial planner that's really doing what they need to be doing, that they really have a solid handle on the financial markets, how to deal with their clients, so on and so forth, I've barely taken a hit at all. I know people that have taken 30% hit, 35% hit in their investments. And I think ours has been about 3% so far. So we've been very, very fortunate. I just finally opened the app yesterday to take a look against my better judgment. And yeah, fortunately we were doing that. But yeah, I would say Elise is right that a lot of financial planners are going to struggle. Not only in their lead gen activity, although for those of you watching, if you've got any equivocation, any concerns about it, we all know to buy low, sell high. When we get at or near the bottom, put some money into your IRA, your 401k, whatever the case may be. That'll pay dividends in years to come. And actually, now that we're on that subject, because you and I had talked about it pre-broadcast, what do you think this looks like for timelines? I mean, I know we'd kind of discussed a 2-to-1 ratio of deficit versus, benefit. But, what are we at? 60 more days of potential instability, putting us at 3 or 4 months, translating to 6 or 8 more to recover. What do you think?
Yeah. I think that the economic impact from this, let me back up 1 second and say that because we're so interconnected now, the emotional and social impact is going to last, I think, a lot longer than it normally would have been if this was 15 years ago when we weren't so connected, right? So there's going to be people still talking about it way after the fact. Regardless, the economic impact of this, I think we're going to feel ripples into the fourth quarter, personally. I think it's going to be totally okay to buy. Everything's going to be totally fine by mid-second, end of second quarter. If anything, the market's going to calm down. Rates are going to stabilize, all these different things. And let's just remember this aspect of real estate is that the money's made on the buy, right? So it's going to be prime time. And I'm not advocating that there's going to be any sort of market crash or anything. It's just the demand of buyers, I think, is totally dried up right now because everybody just has no clue what's going on. That makes perfect sense. But I think it's going to take a little while before people start getting back out and going. And the aggressive buyers that get out there are going to get a deal because they're not having to go against 6 and 8 other people making offers, and they're not going to get bid up and all these different things. Sellers may have wanted to unload the house in March or April, now looking May or June, being like, fine, just take the damn thing from them. I think there's going to be some deals to be had, but I do feel that we're going to feel these economic ripples to the third and fourth quarter in all aspects of the financial market.
From a real estate perspective, I'd have to agree, mostly because of another reason. When employment gets soft, the housing market gets soft. Now, while I think those are both temporary, very temporary byproducts of what's going on right now, just because of the nature of how short-lived this economic crunch is going to be. It's based on a virus. It's not based on long-term economic trends by any stretch. We're not talking about a housing bubble, for example, from yesterdecade. But yes, people who are serious about buying and selling in the near future probably going to. We're going to see a little bit of a shift towards more of a buyer's market. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be a buyer's market. We're never going to solve the inventory issues that are going to make that happen anytime soon. But I was talking to a real estate agent on the phone this morning, and locally, the 7 counties that make up the Denver metro area, we had as many new listings as we did closings over the course of the last week. So we're still at level 0 when it comes to the inventory. Nothing has changed there, and it doesn't seem to be slowing, at least not yet. But let's assume it does. What do you think that means for? And Brendan, I see your questions. Hang on just a sec. We'll get to them. What do you think that means for how a real estate agent should be shifting their lead gen activities right
now? Back to that for 1 second. I don't think it's going to last too horribly, especially for real estate agents. It's like somebody just slammed their brakes on the freeway and then are going to keep going. There's going to be that ripple of traffic behind them, right?
That's a great analogy.
For the real estate agents, I mean, it falls in line with a lot of what we do too. But I mean, once I do have everything under control, right, as far as what's going on with the pipeline, I'm using this time to where maybe we're not getting as many active leads coming in, referrals coming in without us going out and hunting, is I'm retooling a little bit. I'm finally cleaning up my desktop on the computer. I'm finally going through a couple years worth of conference notes that I have to consolidate those. And I've already found a couple pieces of gold in there. Oh man, I forgot to implement that. Because you know how those go, right? Where you've got 20 great ideas, you go back and you just go right into your normal groove. And you thought about one like a week later and you go, oh yeah, no, and keep going. So it's been kind of, as we all have that stacked up workload of back burner stuff, I want to get through all of that right now. And a lot of real estate agents, let's be honest, a lot of them are basically, hold on 1 second, Mike. Can you guys hear me okay?
Okay.
Okay, sorry. A lot of them work for big brokerages, but are really a siloed one-man shop. Right? It's either them and either a partner or them and a buyer's agent, something like that. So it's a very small nucleus and a lot of things get put onto the back burner. This is the time, especially for them, not being able to go out and do their actual lead gen of going for listing appointments, showing buyers homes, things like that. That's pretty much all being shut down right now. It's not a time to sit and watch, all 9 seasons of Friends, although that is fun, right?
And people are doing that too.
Yeah, it's the time to crank through the back burner stuff. Clear that out so when this all opens back up, you're going to come out like a freight train and be unstoppable.
And just to back up a little bit, not too long ago, you and I saw Jenn speak at a conference in Texas on dealing with millennials. I think Jenn was the content, or how to lead gen with millennials. Boy, I just lost her. I lost Jenn. That's
scared her off.
Scared her off. I was going to make her talk, and now that's the end of that. Well, maybe she'll come back and answer some of my questions. But in the interim, Brendan asks, and it's really a good piece of, and don't get me wrong, it's a good question, Brendan. I'm not sure that I've ever seen or heard tale of Glenn participating in something like this, but I do think that there are a lot of people, certainly in our audience, that do. But Brendan asks, have we ever done virtual homebuyer classes? And I'm not sure that I've ever really seen or heard tale of you doing homebuyer classes, period. But yeah,
I mean, that's essentially a webinar, right?
It's essentially a webinar. Yeah, and not right along the lines of what we did on Friday with our group Zoom conference. our Zoom happy hour, which, by the way, was misleading because it was really, really productive time. Thank you to everybody who participated in that. We were able to talk about business and lead gen and the market, and even more personal subjects like how do we deal with our team and how do we deal with our kids, and do you have enough dog food in the house?
I think the best part of that was, well, what are you guys all stocking up on as this is all going down? And I was all, Boeing stock. That's what I'm stocking up on.
they're going to get a big infusion. Yeah, that's probably a solid buy right now would be Boeing stock, no question. So Jen is messaging in that Zoom kicked her off and that she'll try to get back on.
Got that free version.
Yeah, no, actually it's not. And just so you guys are all aware, we did set up a big virtual Seder for my family, not just immediate. We've got a big extended family. So we'll see how 30 people on Zoom goes for a Passover Seder here next month. Should be interesting.
I do have to, that'll be fun, right? I do have to say, this whole Zoom revolution, let's call it, right? We all have used Zoom plenty of times before, but now it's just becoming a very top of mind tool. Is just like we had our little thing on Friday, just like you guys are always doing every Monday here, 9:30 Pacific. Everybody, tune in.
Yeah, I appreciate the plug. Thanks.
Yeah, the fact that we're even talking about doing virtual buyer stuff, you could have a listing consultation really if you had a real tech savvy seller. It's like, well, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's on FaceTime, it's like, well, walk me around the house, show me the trouble spots, like whatever you were going to normally go over in a listing presentation. But I mean, perfect example of just how everybody's using this now. I'm doing a poker night tomorrow night at 8:00 with some buddies.
Over Zoom.
We're going to have this on the side, and then we're going to be on whatever websites there are now for poker, and we will Venmo each other the $20 and do a pool, or $50, whatever it is. This is 2020. What a time to be alive, right? So there's so many options of how to use technology right now, and real estate agents should be able to leverage it into virtual appointments.
True story. Okay. So, Jen, before Zoom kicked you out, and shame on you, Zoom, we need you more now than ever, right? Glenn and I saw you talk about a lot of social media marketing, prospecting, those kinds of things. Do you think any of that changes? Obviously, we talked about millennials and who they trust and what kind of content they're looking for and how they're finding people. Do you think any of that changes in light of what's going on in the world right now?
I think when Glenn was talking earlier, if anything, this gives all of you an opportunity to really show that you're an expert in this field with all the misinformation out there, especially the 0% interest rates, for instance. My news feeds were filled with people my age thinking, oh, I should go get a house. And it really gives all of you the opportunity to explain why that's not the case, not just, no, that's not true, but why. And like I talked about in Austin with millennials, we really want to know the why behind it. We're the why generation, really. And I think that everybody needs to be taking the opportunity to not just write out these huge posts because people aren't going to read them, as we say over and over.
So that's not changing in light of Corona.
No, nobody's going to hit that C more. So we have this technology. So use it, go live, talk to people, ask them what questions they have about the market, but don't pretend that you know things that you don't. Be honest and trustworthy. And I think this just gives everybody opportunity to show what an expert they are.
Fair enough. So Elise comments, maybe we could introduce people to the concept of keeping a database being in all caps. And she's absolutely right. I mean, the first module in our coaching program is contact database. and how to build and assemble, and we've all read Kick Ass, Take Names, Numbers, and Email Addresses. So yeah, there's absolutely good time here. Elise is good. Elise is wise. To spend some of that time doing things like fine tuning your contact database. It's for those of you that would actually get good content out of this, that would be a potential client at Just the Tips Coaching. You should know by now that your contact database is your greatest asset. It's worth more than Glenn's shed. It's worth more than all the furniture and electronics and everything else that your company owns. That's your audience. That's where you're doing your prospecting, whether it's text campaigns or voicemail campaigns or email campaigns or just picking up the phone and talking to people. Your contact database is the most valuable asset you've got. If you've got downtime right now, and you shouldn't because there's plenty of work to do, then spend some of it building up that contact database. So, Elise, thank you. Great comment. Let's see. Brendan says, prior to Corona, we had been meeting with relocating buyers via Zoom, doing what we call Smart Start Mortgage Meeting with Brendan. The Smart Start Mortgage Meeting with Brendan. I like that. It's not as catchy as How I Met Your Mortgage, but whatever. Brendan, I think something's leaking out the top pending. There, buddy. Yeah. My assistant supplies them with a handout PDF, also very smart. And we talked about this for our upcoming Passover Seder. I told my father-in-law to go find the reading material that we all need and email it to everybody that's going to be on the Zoom so we don't have to worry about any of that. But his assistant hands that out prior to the call in a questionnaire that they go over during the call. So, yeah, if you guys had been meeting with people face-to-face, and you can't do that in the current environment, please don't do that in the current environment. Let's, continue to practice our social distancing. Brendan's got a brilliant idea here to come up with video conferences enhanced by pre-printed electronic materials that your clients, leads, prospects, advocates can all review even before getting into that meeting. So yeah, Brendan, great idea. Elise thinks so too. And for those of you watching, yes, we're going to run long today. This is kind of a unique episode of How I Met Your Mortgage, so bear with us if there seems to be a overrun, which we know there is. We're already a few minutes over. But guys, so that we don't go obnoxious over our usual episode, Glenn, Jen, what else do you guys think we should be adding to this audience of agents and originators and financial planners and car sales people, etc., that they should be doing or thinking about in the coming days, weeks, possibly months?
I think the biggest thing is to be the voice of reason, right? You don't need to. There's enough fear mongering out there, and people that are just. There's a lot of people on edge. There's a lot of people that are easily going to be spooled up, so you don't need to feed into that. Obviously, health and safety are number one right now in these times, so that should be your primary focus. But we still all do have businesses that we're running and generating business for. So it's just and I put this in an email to the team last week. It's just be cool-headed, and people are going to gravitate towards you, right? You don't need to try and get everybody all excited about something you don't know the answer to, right? That's the best thing I can tell people right now. It's just be that sound, cool-headed voice of reason.
Yeah, cooler heads will prevail, no question. What about you, Jen? What do you think our audience should, what are we missing, if anything, and we'll cover more next week. I'm sure we're not going to be through this by then, but what do you think our audience should be focusing on, certainly over the next week, if not months, for their practices?
I think it's just really about getting back to the basics of those relationships and nurturing those relationships, getting down to your database. Like Glenn was talking about, clean up that stuff that's been sitting on your computer for months or years and you haven't been implementing. Now's the time to implement those new practices, because it may be a little bit easier right now in theory. But really, I mean, like we talk about every week, it's all about relationships and now's the time to check in on your clients, leads, advocates, and see how they're doing, see what questions they have. And like Glenn said, be that voice of reason for them.
Also, brilliant stuff. Well, thank you both. I can't express enough gratitude to have Jenn on my team, and Glenn is one of my most trusted colleagues. As long as he's not dancing, I'm ecstatic with that. But yeah, I am truly lucky to have both of you in my life, even if it's 1,000 miles away. So thank you both for all kinds of great input and feedback and content. And Glenn, just so that our audience knows how to find you, give us some highlights. What's the best way to reach out to you or to GTG if you're in California and you need a loan, if you are looking for a shop to hang your hat, whatever the case may be? How do we find Glenn?
I appreciate that. Yeah, so our website's gtgfi.com. You can reach me at Glenn, that's with 2 N's, Glenn, at gtgfi.com. And if you have anything marketing related that you want to discuss, set something up, you can reach out to Ashley Miller. She's Ashley at gtgfi.com. Phone number, 707-546-0440. Appreciate it.
I can see Jen's already putting that information up on the post here. All right, and for the rest of you, if we can be of any further assistance, if there's anything you need, if you want more of these episodes to watch, or our weekly video blog, The Weekly Little Tip, if you want a copy of my book, and just obligatory flash of the book. If you want to know more about my $10 million Sausalito view out the window, which is strictly chroma key, I promise you, we're still in Denver. Whatever it is you guys want to know, use that text code at the bottom of your screen. You can text tips to 63566, and you'll get all kinds of cool information back, and certainly how to reach out to Jenn or I or anybody on our team as well. So again, Glenn, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everybody who's watching now or in syndication, and for those of you that did watch live and participated in the conversation, we appreciate that feedback as well. That's it. Yeah, no, we're glad to have you, Glenn. I'm sure we will do it again. In fact, maybe one of these episodes ought to be the 4 of us, and we'll loop Ashley in on this as well when we get back to a modicum of normalcy. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Cool. Cool.